unseen, where shadows play. Tune in, let's drift away.
Midnight whispers on the airwaves, ghostly echoes from hidden graves. Tune your mind to the spectral sounds where Bigfoot roams and the mystery abounds. Chasing lights in the midnight sky, UFOs land and watch them fly. Paranormal truths wrapped in disguise, where the seekers no need to be shy. Take a ride with us into the unknown. Midnight frequency radio, where wild tales are grown. Aliens calling, hear the echo of the past. Time travel dreams, moving forward and fast. Shadow people lurking just out of sight. In the corners of your mind, they whisper tonight. Government cover-ups, secrets concealed. The truth is out there, slowly revealed. Voices crackle through the static haze, tales of the cryptids that haunt our days. With every heartbeat, feel the thrill and the fear. We're not alone, the message is clear. Take a ride with us into the unknown. Midnight frequency radio, where wild tales are grown. Aliens calling, hear the echo of the past. Time travel dreams, moving forward and fast. Where reality bends, time loses its grip. We're on a journey, let your mind slip. Through portals of time and space we glide. Follow the signals, let your soul ride. With each turn of the dial, adventure sparks. We're going beyond where the daylight darks. Let the stories unfold, the myths come alive. In the tapestry of night, we thrive and survive. Fear not the unknown, let go of your doubts. In this midnight hour, we'll figure it out. The galaxy's waiting, the time is now. Join us on this ride, we'll show you how. Take a ride with us into the unknown. Midnight frequency radio, where wild tales are grown. Aliens calling, hear the echo of the past. Time travel dreams, moving forward and fast. With synths and shadows, we end our show. Keep your dial tuned and follow the glow. Midnight frequency, where mysteries blend. The adventure goes on, and it will never end.
From the Ozark foothills of northeast Arkansas, I'm Carl Richardson, and this is Midnight Frequency Radio. Our guest this evening is Jason McLeod. Jason McLeod is a paranormal investigator, demonologist, spiritualist, and intuitive empath. He is also one of only a small handful of investigators who began their instruction and career working for and with the late legendary Ed and Lorraine Warren. Mr. McLeod has spent the last 33 years helping individual families deal with the human spirits who linger in their lives and the inhuman spirits who seek to ruin them. He is the author of the Dark Siege series, beginning with his first self-published novel, Dark Siege, A Connecticut Family's Nightmare. The terrifying true case of demonic infestation obsession, and possession. In Dark Siege 2, The Nightmare Returns, the devastating case of demoniacal retribution. These paranormal powerhouses were written in a cinematic horror style that makes readers feel as though they're standing alongside the beleaguered family, the investigators, and the clergy throughout the story as a supernatural phenomenon and preternatural horrors unfold. The books are impossible to put down and equally hard to read at night without all the lights on. His third book, The Journey Home, the Handbook for Transition, is a large print, color illustrated guide meant for everyone to understand the process of shedding the physical body and what awaits us, especially for those in hospice and for their caregivers, families, and loved ones. Mr. McLeod, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Happy Friday, everybody.
Well, I hope it's cooler in some parts of the country than it has been here because it's about to kill us here.
Yeah, it's been pretty hot here too. Cooled down though. Yeah, weather.
Yes, sir. You began with the Warrens.
Yes.
How did you get involved and meet up with them and start your journey?
Well, it was a very interesting story, and I'd always been interested in spirits as a young person. I was spent a great deal of time in the middle school and high school libraries, studying, reading about mythology, which is all based on some fact, supernatural, spirit phenomena, and so forth. And I was a senior in high school in Westport, Connecticut, and I picked up a book called The Demonologist off the shelf, and it was Ed and Lorraine Warren's most terrifying cases, written by Ed and Gerard Brittle. And I took the book home, and I was absolutely thrilled. I knew I'd have a house to myself for several hours, and I read that book from cover to cover, and I was absolutely terrified.
I was going to say alone.
Yeah, for the families that were experiencing these horrors inside their own homes. Can you imagine?
Really?
And I had two popsicles, and I actually made a crucifix or a cross out of popsicle sticks and Scotch tapes. And I swear to God, that's the truth. And I wasn't afraid for myself. I mean, I was really afraid for what the families that were experiencing these absolute mind-bending horrors inside their own home. And after reading that book and learning more about Ed and Lorraine Warren, they actually lived at the time in Monroe, Connecticut, and I actually lived there. My family lived there for a couple of years, and it was only about 25 minutes away. And if I really wanted to find them, I would easily be able to do so. But I had no interest at that time getting involved. As a senior in high school, I put the book back on the shelf, and I wanted to go to English. I wanted to go to Emerson College for English Creative Writing or Roger Williams. Both had outstanding creative writing schools. I'd always been interested in writing. I'd written a screenplay when I was in seventh grade, and I wrote an epic fantasy novel, 900-page epic fantasy novel with my best friend Eric Yako, in good Lord, 3 months. And we didn't do anything with it. We couldn't do anything with it. It was epic fantasy, and it was really hard to break into the publishing market because to get an agent or anything, to submit unsolicited manuscripts and so forth. So we didn't do anything with it. But my father insisted that I go to a state-supported university because he was paying for it, and he insisted that I would go for a communications degree because I would never make it as an author. And he was being logical and sensible about it because what are the chances somebody would actually make a living selling books? Little did he know. But he insisted I go to Eastern Connecticut State University. I didn't like the school, but the entire freshman class had to read a book called Life After Life by Dr. Raymond Moody as English 101 required reading. And that is the first outstanding synchronicity to me, because why in the world would an entire freshman class have to read a book about near-death experiences? Now, Dr. Raymond Moody was the most famous near-death regression therapist there was, and his book was outstanding. But that really opened a door for me, because if you want to understand ghost phenomena, go read Dr. Raymond Moody's Life After Life book and read and study the millions of near-death experiences that people have had throughout the world, and what they relay, especially under hypnosis. And when you shed the physical body and your consciousness moves on. And that made perfect sense to me. And I didn't go back to college that year. I took a year and a half off. I was antiquing with my mother, Shirley. And my dad was absolutely livid because my parents were divorced and he thought, I wasn't going to go back to school and I'd be, working with my mom. But my mother was a successful antique dealer. And I also got involved in my first band. And
Ah,
my friend asked me to sing lead vocals in his band. And I was like, okay. So my dad was, he thought I was going to become a hippie and a dropout and so forth. But I was with my friend Lou. So 86, 1990, 4 years later after I'd read that book. My friend Lou was an Army combat medic with the rank of captain, retired, but a current paramedic in the Norwalk, Connecticut EMS system. And I was sitting with my friend Lou in his car, and we were listening to the radio, again, 1990 radio, ancient technology. And they were talking about the Three Men and a Baby editing phase when Leonard Nimoy and his staff were going through the editing phase, and then the camera panned, and they saw a boy peeking behind the curtain, and they're like, "What in the heck is that?"
I
And
remember that.
when they panned back, they saw a boy standing behind the curtain holding a high-powered rifle. And they called Lorraine in, and there was no teenage boy on set. There was no high-powered hunting rifle on set. And Lorraine discerned that this teenage boy committed suicide on property with this high-powered hunting rifle. And I turned to Lou and I said, "That'd be so cool to work with them, because I told him about it. I read the book, and he said, "Yeah, no kidding." And the next night, this is how it all began. The next night, this is the God's honest truth. Lou called me and says, "You aren't going to believe who just called me." I asked who? Ed Warren. I'm like, what? Right? Ed was having heart issues. He wanted a medic for their team, so he called the chief of EMS, Norwalk, where the hub was, and asked if there was a medic that he might be able to contact to invite to his Monday night class held at their home and to try to make a connection there. And he gave him Lou's phone number, and he called him up and he explained what the situation was. He invited him to their Monday night class on their home, and I said, "You have to get me in there. It's time." It wasn't time 4 years prior when I read the book and I put it back on the shelf, but I attribute this, Carl, to the universal law of intention. That'd be so cool to work with them. And yeah, no kidding. In the universal law of conscious manifestation, this is higher powers bringing this together through a synchronicity. And so he got to go to the Monday night class and he told Lorraine all about the synchronicity, and she knows all about synchronicities versus a coincidence, which is a random chain of events. And she said, "Okay, invite Jason next Monday." And I was elated and I got to go. And we went to their home and went through the back, you walk around the house to where they have the museum in the back, and they have a classroom adjacent to that and so forth. It wasn't in the museum proper, but and knock on the door, and this young man, a year or two old, three older than me, answers it. And he is still one of my best friends to this day, Drew Thompson. Andy, we call him. And I walked in and I saw Lorraine because she's quite tall in the distance, and she just comes gliding right up. "Hi, Jason. I'm Lorraine Warren, honey." And she just looks right at me. "How strong is your faith, honey?" was the first question she asked me. And I responded instantly. I said, "I have immense faith. I believe that I and the Father are one." And meaning we're all connected. We're never separate from the creator of all that is because we're aspects of that creator. That's what that meant. Didn't mean anything more, uh, like I'm not Christ for anything. And she nodded and she asked, "Why do you want to get involved in work of this nature?" And I told her I read your book, The Demonologist, and I'm terrified for the families, especially the children, and I want to help. And she asked, "So it's a calling then?" And I said, "I think, but I believe it is. So welcome aboard." So we got to go in, and in walks Ed he had a blue flannel shirt. I just remember it to this day, walking in and pulling down the film screen. This is old school. We used reel projectors, like with the reels and projector screens and so forth, and started the class. It was a Monday night class. They actually taught a class, and in that group were about 12, 15 very serious people of all ages. And this is before cell phones. This is before any of the TV shows. This is before any of the conventions. Nobody in that group of serious investigators uh, was doing it for any other reason than to try to unlock the secrets of the universe, to help people, um, and to be part of this very enigmatic couples um, group, their team. And I got to meet all these people. John Zaffis, of course, was there, their nephew, and myself, Drew Thompson. There were three very, very important people people that came very important in my life. Joe and Donna Zor,
Hmm.
Joe Hayjack. Um, anyway, the people that I would end up going on cases with. So the fascinating thing was, we went over all these cases. People, basically the investigators, the Warrens only assigned people to the um, normal cases, earthbound human spirit type of stuff, and minor things. They only got personally involved in the very serious, dangerous cases involving inhuman spirits, diabolical spirits, things like that. So we got to review all the footage that the other investigators had been gathering on the cases that they had been assigned to. So this was all thrilling to me because I got to see firsthand evidence of all the evidence that they picked up. So then at the end of the evening, about 3 hours in, um, Ed described this new case that just came to their attention, and it was a newlywed couple. They had a baby. They bought a house. It was an older house, and they contacted the Warrens because every evening, they said, in their master bedroom, they had a two-level house with two bedrooms upstairs with an adjoining hallway and a bathroom. And every evening, like clockwork, this spirit of this woman would walk right through their wall, ignore them completely, turn and walk down the hallway, stop in front of the baby's crib, which is in the other bedroom, scare the baby out of its wits, and then it would walk through. It was a female, would walk through the crib and walk right through the wall and disappear like clockwork. And the astounding thing to me, Carl, is they assigned Lou and I to that case. This was my first case, my first class. I was like, what? Right? I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I went and borrowed my mom's, VHS camcorder, bought a tripod at Radio Shack, and Lou and I went on our first case together. And that's how it all began.
Well, that would have been the end for me.
That would have been the end.
For me, how to get out of
Oh,
there.
oh, oh no, it was fantastic. I was hooked. It was amazing.
Yes. So that was your first encounter for the most part.
That was the first case, yeah, the first case that they assigned me to, and it was a phenomenal case. I can go into it if you like. If the listeners want to hear it, you tell me what you'd like to do.
I would imagine that was pretty influential to you as you're beginning. And
Yeah, it was incredible.
apparently
Incredible.
it didn't scare you because it would have me. But,
Oh,
but I've never been one to be interested in seeing a ghost or meeting one.
oh.
Or
Well, it's just us, Carl. It's us minus the body. It's our personality minus the physical body,
yeah,
you know? And after reading, again, everything is timing, right? Everything is orchestrated for me, and it has been ever since that day when I first read Life After Life as a freshman in college,
yeah,
and there was nothing to fear. I was like, oh, well, this woman had left her body. She's in the house, right, that these people bought, and our job was to find out why she was doing what she was doing. And if you like, I'll get into it really quickly. It was a fascinating case. And most people wait their entire lives to experience something like this, and this was my first case. So we set the tripod up in the master bedroom, aimed it at the wall where this woman would allegedly come through every evening. We drew the blinds, lit some candles, so there's a little bit of illumination in there. And then Lou and I and the couple would wait down the hallway into the baby's room. Um, this is after we interviewed and did their whole, film the whole house type of thing. They have this specific protocol. And anyway, so we're waiting down the hallway. We're peering down the hall, waiting to see this ghost. I said, I have an opportunity to see my first ghost. And we all heard a crack sound and like a bright blue flash of light, like lightning had gone off inside that room. We were all like, wow, We looked at each other. We're like, we all saw that, right? And I said, okay, that's the doorway opening. It's the wormhole. It's the vortex. It's the window in time. It's the doorway. And now this woman's going to come walking through. And nobody walked down the hallway. So after about 10 minutes, we walked into the bedroom and we all detected a very, very potent, sweet almond smell. Didn't know what to make of that.
Yeah.
And after a couple minutes, we went back into the baby's room and we were taking notes and everything for everybody. And exactly 30 minutes later, another bright blue flash of light took place. And upon re-entering the room, the smell was half as intense. The light was half as intense as well. And then nothing more happened for the rest of the evening. And I was, gravely disappointed because I wanted to see a ghost. But I said that bright blue flash of light was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And we caught this incredible light right on the camera. So before we left, we put the tape in the VHS machine and we're watching it. And I was fast forwarding and playing it at the same time. So you see all this, the snow as it's moving forward. And then I stop, hit play. And after about a couple of seconds, it says, we've just experienced the second flash of light. There was nothing at all on the tape. And we're like, what? Right? And then Lou says, he says, do you hear that? Right? He's a medic, keep in mind, right? So he picked up a specific heartbeat. And then he picked up another specific medical heartbeat with a medical person with a medical condition. And then a third specific heartbeat. We all would have completely missed it. It was so faint, but he's trained to listen for these things.
Yeah.
And he was white as a ghost. Now, there was never any physical body close enough to the camera for a heartbeat to be picked up, nor was the camera sensitive enough to pick up a heartbeat,
Yeah.
much less 3 heartbeats. We didn't understand that. But I was excited that at least we got something, right? And we brought the tape back. I dropped it off at the Warrens' house the next night. And then the following Monday, we went over it. And when it came time for, they'd review everything during the week and then they'd, present it to the class. And they said, this woman was obviously there, but she wasn't going to give us any evidence in the form of a ghostly manifestation. But she broadcasted that the sound, the crack sound, and the light, we all saw it, went right, bypassed our physical eyes, went right into our pineal glands. Now, our pineal glands are photosensitive. It's the third eye. It's our interdimensional conduit to higher frequencies and higher dimensions. It's how we can have a full color dream in a pitch black room with our eyes closed. It's how we can have a full color daydream and we can visualize these things. So she broadcast that directly into our eyes, bypassing the camera aperture, but right into our third eyes. Now that's, people may be asking, how is this all possible? So if you're sitting alone in a house and nobody else is home and you hear creaking floorboards above you, how is this possible? There's no physical weight being applied to the floorboards, right?
Yes.
But they're projecting that sound directly into your head, right into your mind. Lorraine always said, all hauntings begin in the mind. They're projecting what the sound sounds like into your pineal gland, which also picks up through it's all frequency and vibration. That's the big thing too. That's what I talk about in my quantum physics presentations and so forth. Everything's frequency and vibration. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of frequency and vibration. So the vibrations and the frequencies are what were picked up. So I really wanted to see a ghost, but instead we got that light. And that to me was phenomenal. And people wait their whole lives to have anything like that happen. This was my first case. Lou was about 50% out the door at that point. He was like, I don't know if I could take this stuff. He could deal with physical horrors.
Yeah.
But dealing with, non-physical phenomenon really got to him. The thing that really freaked him out and caused him to quit completely is when we all went to Dudleytown together during the day. I don't know if you ever heard of Dudleytown or not, if you want to get into that, but it's a cursed village in Cornwall, Connecticut, and all that remains are foundations. I believe it was the basis for the Blair Witch movies because if you go in there are no insect sounds, there are no animals to be found. It's dead quiet. You feel this presence all around you. People have gone missing. Batteries drained dry. out of nowhere. They're just sucking the energy right out of the electronics and so forth, and people have been harmed, disappeared, never be found again. State police won't let you go in there anymore. But we all went there, and Lou, he was, we're all gathering around, Ed, Lorraine, myself, my sister, two of my best friends, a whole group of investigators. It was just like an outing, like a field trip type of thing. We went during the day.
Yeah.
And Lou comes booking up this trail. He's a huge dude. He's an army combat medic, muscular, big Italian guy, big mustache Italian dude. Booking up the trail, goes, "We gotta get the F out of here. We gotta get out of here." We're like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And he's like completely freaked out. And he described that he was looking, and from behind a tree came was like this garden gnome type of thing going boop, like looking, peeking at him from behind the edge of the tree there with his big red eyes.
Yeah.
And he couldn't take that, and he booked, and like everybody started getting freaked out and wanted to leave, and I wanted to spend the night actually. And Lorraine says, "That's not a good idea, honey," and she wouldn't let us do it. My sister's crying, "I want to get out of it," and I wanted to experience this stuff. I mean, that's why I got involved, right?
Yeah.
But that's how that was my first case, and then my poor friend Lou, didn't continue after that, but I did. I was hooked, completely hooked. I was like, "This is so amazing," you know?
Yeah. Now the heartbeat on the video was almost like an EVP on a tape recorder, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Besides the video equipment that you used then, were there any other devices that I know they have a lot of stuff out nowadays, the pick up magnetic fields and other stuff.
hmm No,
And
this is back in 1990, so we didn't really do anything. I never really saw much equipment at all being used, and Lorraine was being a light trance medium. Ed just used his trusty audio cassette recorder and handheld microphone. This is back in the day,
yeah,
this is 1990. I had one of those square rectangular cameras. We're talking Polaroids
yeah,
sometimes too, and little mini cassette recorders. I have a photo, one of the first photos that was taken of me on a case, and I'm wearing. It's just funny. I look spooked, and I'm holding this ridiculous camera, and there's my cassette recorder sitting on the table. But yeah, we didn't use any of that stuff. As we continue, we'll talk about these different cases and how they affected me. But I ended up becoming more of an empath, which is fascinating to me. I wanted to see a ghost so badly. Instead, I was overcome by the incredible grief that this female earthbound human spirit was feeling. And that changed my life forever because it made me realize what these poor people are going through. They're lost, they're trapped, they're stuck, they don't know what to do themselves. And nobody's there to help them. Everybody's just there to try to, you know, uh, catch a voice or catch a glimpse, but nobody's actually trying to help them. And that was my intention from the very beginning. I want to help.
right.
And I didn't just want to help families deal with these horrible demonic spirits that were wrecking their lives, but I wanted to help these earthbound human spirits that did not cross over correctly and were lost souls,
Yeah.
earthbound human spirits. That's what Lorraine called them.
Um, how's your equipment different now? Have you gotten some of the more modern stuff?
You know, I the only thing I get involved with are people's homes and residences when they are actually experiencing things and they want answers.
Hmm.
And I don't use any gear
Right.
per se. I go in there and try to witness what they're witnessing and to witness them experiencing things. So no, I'm not one of these people that has all these devices and
Gadgets.
gadgets. I just don't do it. Inspector Gadget. I trust my own feelings and my own senses. That's what I use. And I don't proclaim to be any kind of super psychic or anything like that, but I do pick up information when it's relevant and when it's supposed to happen. I have had really powerful psychic experiences where I pick up information. When I was in Washington State, so I investigated many cases with the Warrens starting in 1990 before I transferred out to Eastern Washington University because they had an outstanding. Let me go back. I actually went to Sacred Heart University and investigating cases with the Warrens, and it was a Catholic university. So I went there to pull my grades up because I didn't do well at Eastern Connecticut, and I wanted to transfer out to a good writing school. So I was at Sacred Heart. Word got out that I was working with the Warrens. So I actually, since I was an English creative writing major, I actually started writing a newspaper column called Hauntings for the Sacred Heart University Spectrum newspaper starting in 1990. And my first several issues are up on my website, and I present those, on the screen when I'm doing my lectures and these different conventions and so forth. But I was chronicling my first adventures working with for the Warrens on their behalf with the other investigators, and then on a case that happened in Vermont that was my most mind-bending case, working actually with Ed and Lorraine Warren. And I discussed that at length in I have a 90-minute presentation called Working with the Warrens on my YouTube channel that I did at the Southbury Public Library, but also at different conventions. And so I have the audio from that case that was actually transcribed into an outstanding video with Mysterious World TV about this case, working with the Warrens in Vermont, a case that completely changed my life forever and was incredible. And that was the first big one that I worked on with them. And then after that, I transferred out to Eastern Washington, all kinds of adventures out there. Actually, I was the president of my fraternity. I was a Sigma Phi Epsilon president, first chapter president, and the school got wind that I wrote a column at Sacred Heart. So they asked me to pick up the same column. And I said, let's fly the Warrens out to do their college lecture because they put an outstanding presentation together. So we did that. We orchestrated the flying them out. And I was actually the MC there, which was pretty fun at the university lecture hall. And then we had the Warrens to my fraternity house. We had a cake and we had a private gathering. And then we all went around um, to local haunted hotspots in Spokane and Cheney, which is where the school was. We went to the cemetery called Cemetery of 1,000 Steps, which was interesting. Anyway, so that just exploded. Interest was just huge. So I said, you know what? I'm going to teach a class. So I started a class and wrote a syllabus and had a weekly class called, I mirrored it after the Warren's New England Society for Psychic Research, and I called it the Northwest Society for Psychic Research. And I would add special guests and so forth. Put ads in the paper, basically asking if you're experiencing haunting phenomena, I might be able to help. And I started getting handwritten letters from people, and going on these cases actually helped these people. What's interesting is that the Warrens actually, Lorraine called me, this is in 92, and informed me that there was they became aware of a case in Rathdrum, Idaho, which is about 30 minutes east of where I was. And they asked me to investigate for the first time as the lead investigator on their behalf, as the only investigator. And I was elated. I said, sure, I'd be happy to. And I went out there, took one of my friends with me who was a football player. He was very interested, very spiritual, very devout Christian. And we went to this interview this family at their home. And while I was there, I got a phone call. They got a phone call from one of their friends who happened to be a very interesting psychic who owned a crystal store in Spokane, and she actually wanted to speak with me, and I did. And she invited me to come to her store after the case, and which I did. And I met her, this blonde woman, Valerie, and this scientist named Bruce. And they became three of my closest lifelong friends, two very powerful psychic women and a scientist. And it was like the perfect combo. And that case, actually, I'm writing a full-length novel about that case called Rage in Rathdrum right now. But that was a big one. And after that, just doing local cases and so forth. There was an ET case, which was fascinating, and all kinds of interesting information. And then I graduated back in 93 and went back home to Connecticut, and I worked as a banquet manager and at the Westport Inn in Westport, Connecticut. And I decided I'd put on a lecture, and it was called Transcendence.
Yeah.
And I put newspaper ads out, and this family contacted me that was desperate for help. And that became my case that I first self-published case called Dark Siege, a Connecticut Family's Nightmare.
So with the Dark Siege spirit, was an evil spirit, or?
So this was a mother and 6-year-old girl driving by Union Cemetery, which is one of the most haunted cemeteries in New England, right before Halloween in 93. Incredible storm came in, And mom planted the idea in Kelly's mind, watch out, maybe we'll see a ghost, And she said, "Ah, stop, that's scary." But then she's looking for it, right? Well, mom's an
Yeah.
artist. Mom was an artist, and Ed always said artists are very psychic, and the children of artists are very psychic. And it turns out that Lorraine, that Kelly she actually spotted this gray, black, misty form deeper in the cemetery as they're passing by, and she's wiping the condensation off the glass, and she's looking as mom's focusing on the driving because an incredible rainstorm and lightning and thunder happened, and she saw this black form literally walking straight toward the car, like it's going to intercept it right through the gravestone,
Uh-huh.
which she boggled her mind. She didn't know how to understand that. Right through the iron fence, right up to the curb as the car was passing by, and then turns his head to look at Kelly, and she's completely out of her mind, sinking in her seat, holding her stuffed bunny, and she's like, "What's going on?" And then he's disappearing and reappearing closer to the cars, like he's like teleporting or shifting. Um, and he ends up following her home. Comes right up to the rear window, scares her out of her mind. Mom cuts the wheel, nearly has an accident because the road's very slick. And when questioning her, what are you screaming about? He was so scary. Who was? This ghost, right? She's like, "Oh, Kelly, your eyes are playing tricks on you. Ghosts aren't real. There are too, and it followed her home. Mom didn't believe her. Okay.
Oh boy.
Older brother, 16-year-old, made fun of her. Ooh, ghost, right? And she's like, they'll just come on, give me a break. But then mom got a glimpse of him in the kitchen the next morning as she's doing laundry. He comes right through the washing machine, right through her. And she doesn't know what to make of it. She thinks her eyes are playing tricks on her. And then the 16-year-old brother, other things happen. The 16-year-old brother the next day had the house to himself with his two friends, and they see this same shadowy form walking on the perimeter of the outside of the house. And when they run out to confront him, he's nowhere to be found. There's no footprints in the snow. It's a light snowfall, late October, which was weird. Um, and when they turn back toward the house, the sliding glass door is sliding shut. And they're like, "Are you kidding me?" Right? And they run over to the house, and one of the boys tries the door, and it's locked. And then Tyler, who lives there, tried it, and it easily opened. And he asked, "Are you guys messing around with me?" But then they start experiencing things inside the house, disembodied voices, laughter from one area, and then laughter, around them, like a surround sound type of thing, and a ozone smell, right? A very powerful ozone smell that you get before a lightning storm,
Mhm.
and then a big crashing sound. And when they look behind the bar, several of the bottles are cracked in half and they're spilling out all over the rubber mat, and some others are just, splintered and cracked and so forth. And Tyler's like, "Oh my God, I'm going to get in so much trouble because my dad's going to blame me." And then they realize that Kelly's telling the truth. One thing after another starts happening to these guys, 16-year-olds. And they're like, "What are we going to do?" Right? "Kelly's telling the truth. What are we going to do? Let's go get a Ouija board." Right? And they're like, "What?" Right? One of the guys, those things don't work. And the other ones, "That's a wicked idea." And they go to the toy store down the road at the mall before it closes and buy a Ouija board, and they open the floodgates when they get home because they
Oh my
challenged
God.
it and everything else to come after them and said, "What are you after my sister for? Right? Come
Yeah.
after me, you know?" And they opened the floodgates. And at that point, Carl, it became the most rapid escalation from demonic infestation to oppression to possession to exorcism we've ever experienced.
Oh my goodness.
And I consulted with Ed on this case, and it was mind-bending. And the thing is, nobody would ever have heard about it because in other cases, other severe, severe cases like this, people will never hear about because the families want no recognition because giving it recognition can draw it right back into their lives.
Yeah.
So, as happened with, in fact, the new movie coming out called Last Rites, which is about the Smurl family in Pennsylvania, they came forward, and it was the worst mistake they ever could have made because it was a media circus. People were driving by their house every night. The kids were getting ridiculed. It was a complete nightmare for them when they were trying to reach out for people to help them.
Mhm.
So they didn't know anything about this case. This family knew nothing about the paranormal. They had never heard of the Warrens before. They had no interest in any of this stuff. There were no ghost movies, like ghost shows anywhere, and it was just a random passing by of a cemetery on a stormy afternoon with a very sensitive child who had the seed planted her mind, who was looking for it, and she made the connection with this guy. Now, this guy was a very negative, earthbound human spirit, but he was a human spirit. And he was causing activity to take place for people to notice him. And he wanted to basically tell his story. And here this, vibrant little girl passes by and he makes a connection with her. And there was nothing nefarious involved. But when the stupid teenagers issued all the wrong challenges, they opened the floodgates. And in through that doorway that they opened, right, it's invitation and invocation. That's how the door gets opened, right? And they invited him in, and 8 different demonic entities came in. We think it was 7 demons and a devil. It's a hierarchy based on the power levels. And the nightmare that took place in this family's life was mind-boggling. And this happened in 93. And in 2012, I learned, first of all, that there were thousands of these paranormal groups out there, trying to emulate what the Warrens did. Because that's where it all began. None of this would happen. None of these shows would exist if it weren't for the Warrens. They're the pioneers of the modern paranormal investigation craze in North America and in England, as far as I'm concerned. And I found out that these were paranormal groups, but some of these groups were using Ouija boards inside people's homes. Like, are you freaking crazy? I called John Zaffis. He's the first person I called. And I explained what's going on. He's like, it's an epidemic. Right? And I called the woman and I told her, and she said, my God, right? If you can spare one family from the nightmare that we went through, especially a little girl like Kelly, then just change our likenesses, right? So that you have to promise us nothing comes after us, because they did come after them a second time.
Yeah.
With a vengeance. And that's why there's a part 2. Now, the reason I did it in 2 volumes is because the family's desire was to reach the kids, right? Not to terrify anybody, but to warn them, don't play with Ouija boards. Don't invite unseen spirits into your life by challenging them, right? And for the parents, listen to your kids. If they're saying they're seeing things, pay attention, right? Communicate with each other. So I did something completely unique at this point. I actually used my English creative writing degree to recreate this entire case from start to finish in a cinematic, true crime, horror format, like you're reading a Stephen King book, because I wanted to recreate what this family went through from the very beginning until the point where I arrive to help out midway through, all the way to the end after the exorcism. So you feel like you're right there among everybody experiencing these absolute horrors with everybody that these horrors are happening to. So people say, I could not put this book down. I could not read it at night without every light on in the house. I have over 450 reviews on Amazon with a 4.4 rating. My audiobook I did in my own voice has a 5.5-star rating, completely perfect, which is really good. I did it all in my own voice. Audiobook, the Kindle edition. Anyway, and what's fascinating is I did something also completely different there, is I included a chapter by chapter analysis at the end of the book. So the last 95 pages explains my experience working with the Warrens, how that all came to be, my first several cases, what my understanding about the science and spirituality behind the paranormal in 35 years in this work now, what this family did right and wrong every step of the way, according to the Warrens protocol and my experience and so forth, how to protect yourself, how to raise your frequency and vibration, because it's all vibration and frequency. An outstanding Archangel Michael prayer that I wrote that I use in infested homes. It's very, very powerful. All kinds of great stuff. So that's like an armchair discussion at the end. And then Bishop James Long, I have to say this because he's such a huge supporter. He actually got me on Coast to Coast the first time while I was in Salem selling my books in 2014. He went on Coast to Coast and he started plugging my books. And he says, and it was guest host Connie Willis. She says, nobody plugs other people's books. What are you doing? He's like, you have to read these books. If you want to understand demonology, you have to read these books, right? So he's a huge supporter of mine. So I sent him part 2. I had to make a separate volume because it would have been an 800-page epic first attempt to self-publish. But it included these spirits came back with a vengeance and what we call diabolical retribution, including incubus and succubus attacks, which are sexual. So I had to make that an 18 and up volume because of the absolute severe case of infestation. I'm sorry, um, incubus and succubus attacks that takes place. It has to be 18 and up. I sent the entire PDF of Volume 2 to Bishop Long because I told him I'm really hesitant to release that aspect because I write like you're right there experiencing everything, and who wants to experience a demonic rape, right? And he read it and he says, you have to include this. Though rare, situations like this are rare, but so severe, you need to warn people that they need to seek help from clergy immediately. This is not something to toy around with because normally these things start very subtly and pleasurable to work their way into your energy and into your fields and into your life. But in this case, they wanted to destroy two of these boys that used the Ouija board. One was straight, he got a succubus attack. One was secretly gay, he got an incubus attack.
Mm-hmm.
They take the forms that you're attracted to, as far as uh, genitalia, for instance.
Yeah.
Horrible, absolutely horrible. And I had to make it a separate volume because of that. And so I have two different volumes in this one family's case. And thankfully, true to my word, nothing has happened since 2012 when I recreated this case. And now I have other books that I'm writing about. I'm writing about the Rage and Rathdrum case, and I'm writing about the case that I investigated with the Warrens in Vermont that was so incredible to me, called The Demon of Daybreak Farm. So I have two books I'm writing simultaneously at the same time doing all these conventions. I do about 30 conventions a year, all over the country, going there and driving there because my inventory is so heavy and my table display is so big. But I drive all over the place to reach out to people and sell my books. And when I can lecture, that's fantastic because I can really reach people. But there are now people that are actually trying to invite demons into their life on purpose so that they can have the experience to know that it's real. And it's like cancer's real. You don't want to go get cancer to know that it's real. You're inviting these things into their lives, and people are using the lesser keys of Solomon, coupled with Ouija boards, thinking that they're going to invite demons into their life and that they're actually going to do them some kind of favor, and they're not going to suffer for it. And it's insanity.
Yeah. In a lot of your books, you analyze paranormal events through quantum physics and universal laws of attraction,
Mm-hmm.
and other scientific and spiritual concepts. Do you believe this approach is important for understanding the paranormal?
Again, everything's frequency and vibration. So everything that you think about, every action you take is important. Your intention is everything. Everything is intention. I'll give you an example. A case that I went on, one of my first demonic cases I went on with Joe and Donna and Andy um, in this house, working, as the Warren students. We were all sitting on this sectional sofa, and Donna and Andy were able to detect and perceive this pitch black form standing on the stairs, observing us. And at that point, I pulled out of my pocket a blessed rosary beads my grandmother gave me. They're actually glow in the dark green rosary beads.
Yeah.
And I pulled them out of my pocket and put them in my hands as a protective measure. And they said this, and I heard, Jason, what did you do? He has rosary beads. Put them away quick. Right. And then I'm fearful. And then I'm fumbling with them, trying to stick them in my pocket. But when I pulled them out of my pocket, according to these two psychics that could see, this form on the stairs went right up to me. I didn't feel it, didn't sense it or anything. But it was like literally standing right there in front of me as I was sitting on the couch. And the second that I put them back into my pocket, it went right back up to the stairs.
Wow.
And when we had the class the next Monday night, and we were describing the situation, I asked, well, what could have happened? Right? And he said, it could have burned you, scratched you, choked you, mauled you, teleported you, right? And I was like, I don't think it could have done that to me. But he said, your intention was self-protection, not to challenge it. If I took them out of my pocket and said, I challenge you, my
Yeah.
faith against you, the intention was a direct challenge and a confrontation that could have ensued, but that wasn't the case. Everything that we do in our lives is intention. Intention matters. Every song you listen to, right? Every television show you watch and you observe and you put yourself, you immerse yourself into, um, the thoughts that you have, the deeds that you do, It all matters and it all affects your frequency and vibration. And if your frequency and vibration is lowered enough, right, these demons can come in and latch onto you and cause problems for you. Now, frequency and vibration is affected by, there's something called pharmakia, right, which is pharmacy, sorcery, drugs, right?
Yeah.
There's a spirit called alcohol that comes from Egypt, which is alcohol. And as my good friend Bill Bean says, who's been on Coast to Coast hundreds of times, you know, uh, it's a flesh-eating demon, right? And that's what they call it, under the influence, because you're under the influence of a demonic spirit at
Yes,
that
sir.
point. Your frequency and vibration lowers, your aura becomes very porous. Lorraine always was adamant, no drinking, right? No pharmaceutical drugs, no recreational drugs. You have to be fit and a sound mind, uh, balanced emotionally, right? Um, because all of these things matter. If you are anxious or fearful, you're putting everybody at risk. If you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol, you're putting everybody else at risk, and she wouldn't have it. And so all of this matters, and it all ties into the frequency and vibration, which is all part of quantum physics, the observer. If you really want to find a phenomenal movie, watch What the Bleep Do We Know, about all about quantum physics and how the observer actually can create the reality that this person experiences. So for me, everything's vibration and frequency, the law of intention, the law of attraction, the law of balance, the law of conscious manifestation. Your vibratory field and your vibratory rate affects the strength of the shields around you, your mental, astral, emotional, physical body, your spiritual body. If you have no spiritual connection to God, the creator of all that is, right? And you believe that you're completely separate from that incredible power, the most powerful force there is, then that's a whole layer of shielding that you don't possess. That isn't going to help you. When Lorraine asked me the first question, how strong is your faith? Right? And it wasn't just because, she wanted to know if I go to church. It was because it's your level of protection. You can tell somebody who's really, really well protected and really, really spiritual, not religion,
Mhm.
spiritual, know that you're connected to the creator, you're all connected to each other, you're connected to this earth and everything on it. You have a knowing, right? Um, you're much better protected. And I've always felt protected. Lorraine always taught us the Christ light. For instance, you would visualize a white ball of light in your core, which is God's light. It's your connection to God, the God spark, right? And you feel it and visualize it expanding until it completely surrounds you, front and back, left and right, up and down, until you're in a complete bubble of light. And know that this is God's protection, that nothing, I mean, God is the ultimate power of the universe. Nothing can breach that and cause you any harm. But you have to believe it. Everything is faith. And faith is very, very powerful. And you know, I believe that's the reason why she sent me on my first case the way she did, and because she realized I was here to try to help out, and that's how it all ties in.
On a lot of these hauntings, you say it deals with the vibrations. Can the houses and the foundations
Mm,
absorb the vibrations from the past, and that's what is actually haunting some
yeah,
locations? Yeah.
yeah. Lorraine said that the one place she would never return to, and I heard her say this, is the Amityville house, because there's just been so much tragedy that takes place that draws what? Draws more tragedy. It's negative energy. It's like a downward spiral into the earth, right? And it keeps drawing more negative energies, negative entities. It'll draw negative people there who are having their own negative experiences. So if you're in a very, think about somebody who's happy and joyful, right?
Mhm.
And they're glowing, right? They're happy, they're glowing, they're just they look wonderful, they're standing upright, they feel great. Versus somebody who's completely depressed, um, to the point of suicide, right? They
Yeah.
have no energy left. They're just like they're sulking. They look terrible. They look. You can just see it, right? And that's the type of person that these negative energies can just want to go glom onto. Ooh, we have easy pickings. And like Archbishop James Cloud said in my defeating the demonic seminar that I put together in 2024 and 2023, you have to understand what these demonic spirits see when they look at you and me. And he said it's tantamount to the lioness hunting the wildebeest on the Serengeti, right? They see us as animals, and they're looking for the weak one, the easy prey, right? The person that's depressed, the person that's getting into dark occult practices, the person that's on drugs, the person that's violent, the person that's consumed by lust or just cannot get enough alcohol or drugs or whatever. I mean, it's all, again, frequency and vibration. So they try to go after the weakest link. They always go after the weakest link. They leave the strongest person, the alpha, as in the case in Dark Siege, my case, alone completely, and they'll go after the troublemakers, right? The person that actually is actually trying to challenge them, or the weakest ones. And they don't fight fair. And their goal is to kill, rob, and destroy your family and break it apart and, make you feel like there's no hope, there's nobody to turn to. They'll pull you out of your support structure and convince you to go kill yourself in some cases. That's their whole goal. They can't kill you. They can convince you to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Amityville house, I saw pictures somewhere the other day where the house has been renovated and someone else is living there now.
No idea. The only connection I have with that is I was doing a convention and Chris Lutz came up to my table and introduced himself. And I was like, wow, because all those cases, the Conjuring case, the Nun, the Amityville case, the Annabelle stuff, all that, the haunting in Connecticut, even though I'm friends with Carmen Snedeker, who's now Carmen Reed, the Southington funeral home case in Connecticut, all that stuff predated my arrival on the scene as an investigator in 1990. So I can't even talk about it because I wasn't there. And the thing that makes me laugh are people who are, trying to comment on the Warrens' careers or who they were as people and so forth when they never met them and never went on, never were part of their classes or never went on any cases and say things about them. It's like, I don't even talk about the cases that I know of, that I've seen evidence of, in the classes and so forth, and heard them talking about it from, firsthand accounts, because I wasn't there. And I don't talk about what I hadn't experienced, because I have no right to do so.
Yeah.
And my experience with the Warrens has been nothing but positive. They're like the grandparents, I wish I had, even though I love my grandparents, because they were like this. The first time I walked into that classroom, it was like stepping into the wizard's tower, It's like everything is just, I felt like my whole life was meant to just be right there at that moment to, to experience, to begin this adventure. And that's what it's been. It's been wild.
I would call it an adventure, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, we're close to the top of the hour. I'll go ahead and take the first break, and then we'll be back right after that. It's
right.
5.5 minutes long.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Shiver in the dark, it's raining in the park, but meantime, sound of the river, you stop and you hold everything. A band is blowing Dixie, double fall time.
This is Dark Matter News. I'm Joshua Stark. Researchers from the University of Washington and City of Hope National Medical Center report the existence of a new biological state, neither fully alive nor entirely dead. This occurs when cells from a deceased organism given nutrients, oxygen, bioelectric signals, or biochemical cues begin to reorganize into functional multicellular entities. These new life forms exhibit capabilities never seen in the original organism. Two examples of these are xenobots and anthrobots. Xenobots are cells from dead frog embryos that self-assemble into tiny biological machines that can move using cilia, collect materials, self-heal, and even self-replicate. Anthrobots are human lung cells that can similarly form micro-robots capable of locomotion, self-repair, and even repairing nearby neuron cells. One hypothesis suggests specialized cell membrane channels act as electrical circuits, enabling communication, movement, growth, even post-mortem. The ability to enter this third state depends on factors like time since death, temperature, availability of energy, the organism's age, health, sex, and species. With lifespans of 4 to 6 weeks before biodegrading, these biobots are safe and controllable. They could be engineered to deliver drugs, clear arterial plaque, treat cystic fibrosis, or regenerate damaged tissue using a patient's own cells to avoid immune reactions. These biobots open implications for regenerative medicine, legal definitions of death, and even ethical policies. For the first time, NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, or JWST, has directly discovered and imaged a previously unknown exoplanet, TWA-7b, without prior detection from Earth-bound observatories. TWA-7b orbits a youthful star roughly 110 light-years away in the constellation Antlia. The host star is just about 6 million years old. This gas giant is roughly Saturn mass, around 1/3 of Jupiter's mass, and joins the ranks of the lightest exoplanets ever captured by direct imaging, about 10 times less massive than earlier such finds. Less than 2% of the nearly 5,900 known exoplanets have been captured via direct imaging. This discovery underscores the telescope's enhanced capabilities. This is Dark Matter News.
Hi, this is Jessica with C. Crane. Tired of spotty radio reception and static? C. Crane CC Wi-Fi 3 Internet Radio offers a crystal clear solution with audio guaranteed to outperform any smartphone speaker. With an internet connection, tune in to over 30,000 radio stations from around the world, all conveniently accessible without needing any apps, providing personal information, or additional monthly subscriptions. Enjoy complete privacy with no microphone or eavesdropping. The CC Wi-Fi 3 boasts a user-friendly interface with a full-sized remote for easy control. It also doubles as a Bluetooth speaker for your favorite music and podcasts. Ready to upgrade your listening experience? You can get the CC Wi-Fi 3 by calling C. Crane at 800-522-8863 or by visiting us online at ccrane.com. Once again, that's ccrane.com.
Frequency Radio, and I was told by one of the listeners that we were having some audio issues. I apologize for that, but no matter how much you pre-plan and pre-test, it always seems Murphy's Law has got to kick in and cause an issue. So we're back, and I think everything's working correctly now.
Well, talking about this stuff, the dark side doesn't like it, so I always say thank you, Archangel Michael, for being here, being with us now, and for blocking any interference that is taking place, for allowing this show to flow smoothly, and that it reaches everybody who needs to hear the information. In the name, the power, and the glory of the one Creator, and so it is.
Amen to that. What are some of the biggest misconceptions about the paranormal that you've run across, and how do you address those?
That's a good question. So most people, we're haunted, right? There's spirits all around us all the time. We can only see visible light, which is 1% of everything around us. That's why they call it visible light. So we're 99% oblivious to everything around us. So for people to say things like, if I can't see it, it doesn't exist, that doesn't make any sense at all when you consider the fact that we can only see 1% of the things around us. So when people play with a Ouija board, for instance, they think it's a game, it's sold as a game. It's Ed Warren, my teacher and mentor and friend, called it the most dangerous piece of negative occult paraphernalia in existence. Why would that be? Because you're using your free will, right? God gave us free will um, to initiate contact and have communication with an unseen spirit. You don't know where that spirit is, where it's from, what type of spirit it is, what its intentions are, whether it's lying to you or not, what its end goal is, and so forth. You have no idea the dangers involved in trying to communicate with spirits. Another thing is that people often issue a general query or a general statement. Are there any spirits here? Well, where is here defined in that statement? In the house or in the room that the board's being used in the house, on the property, in the town, the county, the state, the country, the planet, the dimension, the density. There's nowhere. Any spirits here? Well, where? Everywhere? You don't define these things. You put, there's no limitation on what that request is all about. And thinking that you are going to be able to somehow challenge or go toe to toe with something that you have no idea what it is also very folly. So, like in the Dark Siege case, when these teenagers challenge these spirits, come mess with me. What are you after my 6-year-old sister for? Come after us. Are you afraid of us?
Yeah.
Show yourself. Asking something to show itself. Well, you're only able to see visible light. So unless it's really going to project itself into your mind or manifest before you, which takes a great deal of energy, you're not going to see anything. And then you're going to say, oh, well, nothing happened. I used the Ouija board, right? Nothing happened. You have no idea
Yeah, you just think nothing
what door
happened.
you've opened, right? Or where it is. It's often exactly where you used the board, as in the case in the Dark Siege case. And it's swung wide open. You made the invitation. And people say, oh, well, you know how to use it right. You don't close the doorway. They don't know what to do because they're not closing the doorway. I really seriously doubt that most people know how to close a doorway when they can't even perceive it and not understand, where it was located and what it's connected to. It's like you're opening a window in space and time. Now, these beings, if it's a demonic spirit, they exist outside time and space, right? Mm-hmm. So 15 years down the line, when you've completely forgotten about using the Ouija board, to them, it's a blink of an eye. So, like Archbishop Cloud says, I've been using the Ouija board for 15 years and I teach it and blah 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 blah. It hasn't happened yet, right? And like Bishop Locke says, they'll come when they want to come, not at your leisure. When you're sick in bed, when you lost your loved one, right? When you're in the middle of a divorce, when you're destitute, when you're a big mess, that's when they'll pounce because they don't fight fair. They need to be invited in because we have free will. So you're using that invitation, and Ouija board is the worst way to invite dark spirits into your life. So that's the biggest thing. And that's, if they didn't use the Ouija board in this case that I investigated in Monroe, that I call Dark Siege, then all we would have had to deal with was an earthbound human spirit. The other mistake is to think that you're hunting anybody. The whole notion that we are ghost hunters is laughable when we can only perceive 1% of everything around us. When you study near-death experience cases and you realize that when consciousness vacates the body is an insulated meat suit, and it's insulated, so we're not able to perceive anything after the 1%. And most people aren't very, they don't develop their psychic abilities. They don't put any time into it. If you want to be a master pianist, you have to study the piano 8 hours a day, every day for 15 years. If you want to be a psychic and really develop those skills, you got to put time into it. Most people couldn't care less, and they don't have the time. They don't know how to do it. But when the spirit vacates the body, they're able to read the thoughts of other people easily, feel their emotions. They can see in a 360-degree arc, right? It's incredible. But when you're in the body, we're we're blind as a bat and we don't even have sonar. Cats and dogs can see more than we can. And when your cat is hissing and they're hiding under the couch, or the dog's growling and barking at the corner, you know, they're seeing things that we're unable to perceive. They're able to see more than we can. So pay attention to those guardian animals, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, the whole thing. I mean, I want to make a meme where somebody's like, people are, looking around the house with a flashlight thinking they're going to hunt something. You're hunting something that you can't even perceive,
Yeah.
And then if it's inhuman, they're probably just like, look at this guy. Now you have the technologies and so forth, like I said, that I don't use, but it's like, grids and things, and you can maybe catch some kind of disturbance, but what are you really seeing? The other major factor for me, which really gets me upset, is you'll have these haunted locations, whether it's an asylum or it's a prison or it's a hotel or a brothel or a saloon or a mental institution or just a battlefield location and so forth. And people will be, running to these places, inserting themselves or immersing themselves into these situations because they want to have a spiritual, ghostly phenomena experience. But again, like I was telling you earlier, are you mentally sound, emotionally sound, physically sound? Are you on drugs, alcohol? What's the state of your aura? Do you have any kind of spiritual defenses? Are you full of fear, right? Which completely lowers your vibration. Are you immersing yourself in the situation where you're going to go home with an attachment and have somebody else has to basically come and help you out? Are you going in there to these locations to try to get some evidence that this other side exists? That's reasonable, right? That's, I think, why we all got involved. I got involved working with the Warrens. Is I knew it, I believed it existed. I wanted to have experiences to understand that it did. But my goal was to always help these earthbound human spirits, help them cross over, right? Instead
Yes.
of having an inn and charging $50 a person every weekend to come in and try to get a voice message or an EVP or watch the little thing roll around and light up. And, how about we help these people cross over and end their misery?
Yeah.
And I went to a hotel place to investigate because I was driving through from one convention to the other, and they said, "Don't cross my spirits." I was like, "Those aren't your spirits. That's soul trafficking, right? These spirits need help. They want to leave. It's just like you or I. Can you imagine being trapped and stuck in a location? You have no idea what to do with yourself. You don't know how to reach out and call out for help, and nobody's helping you get that help to help you cross over, but they want you to stick around as their little plaything,
Yeah.
for decades.
Yeah.
It's outrageous, and I just don't think. I think
I
I'd
w-
go in there. I'd go in there and clean every one of these things out. I'd also invoke the power of the archangels, and I would clear all this dark crap out of people's locations. And it's just, it's maddening to me because this whole thing is perpetuates because we don't try to help end the plight of these spirits, and it's crazy to me. And that's another thing is treating these people like they're your plaything when these are fields of awareness that have existed, always have existed, exist now, will always exist, but they're trapped between dimensions. They haven't crossed over properly, and that happens for a number of reasons. Not even understanding that they've passed, right? They still think they're alive and that they can cling to this lifetime. When this lifetime's through with them at that point, they fear going to hell, right? They don't want to go into the light, or they don't want to take their relative's hand and cross over because they fear they're going to face loved ones or judgment for a lifetime of mistakes that they made. They won't be able to get their drugs or their alcohol or their sex or their gambling, whatever else they're addicted to, foods, cigarettes, any of that stuff. They mistakenly believe that they can't have whatever they want when they go onto the other side, which is foolish because you can have anything you want. You can actually manifest it with a thought, but they're trapped. And some spirits actually, of course, don't want to go because they feel like they're okay in this in-between state. So the Tibetans call that the bardo. It's the in-between state, life between life, where you're stuck, you haven't crossed over, you're just like a shadow floating around and unable to interact in a physical way, unable to make contact with most people, So you have to resort to, moving things that they can get their attention, or projecting thoughts or smells and perfumes and things into their minds. Um,
I
you
don't
know,
know. To me, a lot of these things have turned into nothing but a circus act.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, and I'm sure a spirit, the last thing it wants is somebody telling them, please make this buzzer go off. Or please
yeah. That's what
flash.
they can't wait to hear.
Yeah, I'm sure they're just dying. Well, I'm sure they're just
Yeah,
cannot
they're
wait.
just dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just dying to come and play with you. It's like, give me, oh my God, again.
Yeah.
you know, and I don't mean to belittle anybody, who, in any way, but you have to take into consideration these people. They're people, minus the body. They're still very much alive. They're more alive than we are. There's, Indian chiefs that say the spirit world is so far superior to the physical world. There's no comparison. But in this case, you're stuck in between. So my go-to whenever I pass the cemetery, when I'm ever, near a haunted location, or I sense something's around me that wants help, thank you, Archangel Gabriel, right? Gabriel, for
Yes.
being here now, for taking any spirits in this cemetery or in this location home to God, if it is their free will choice. You can act as an intermediary and summon assistance for these poor lost people. If nobody else is going to do it, you can do it, right? So here's the interesting thing, is that the angelic needs to be invited in, just like the dark needs to be invited in, because we have free will. Otherwise, we're operating on our own. And your guides, your team in spirit, your angels, your archangels, they're waiting to be requested. But you have to be very specific too. Same thing when you're using Ouija boards. Same thing when you're trying to interact with these spirits. You have to be very, very specific what it is that you desire, and you have to have the faith that whatever you ask for will be instantly manifested. That's the big thing too.
Yeah.
So my go-to prayer, which I actually put on a bookmark that I give to people who buy my books. My friend's an iconographer, and she made this Archangel Michael icon. But my prayer, I could just wing it. But thank you, Archangel Michael, for being here now, for drawing your sword, meaning being here now, meaning you're here instantly. There's no delay. There's no time and space outside of the third dimension. They're with you in an instant, right? It's instant. Thank you for being here now, for drawing your sword, for severing any connections I've made with any spirits at any point in my life, for closing any doorways I've opened at any point in my life through the use of Ouija board or occult practices or paraphernalia or intentions, for closing that doorway permanently and for sealing it forever, for taking any energies that are not in alignment with my highest good out of my life, out of my awareness, out of my home, out of my conveyances, my cars, forever, for sending a legion of holy warrior angels to be with me in my home, in my car, with everyone that I love, and keeping us safe in all ways, always, in Jesus' name, or in the name of the one creator. So be it. It is so. Amen. Whatever you want to say. But if you believe it and you summon it, it's going to affect you in a positive way. And you can do it every morning when you wake up. You can just wing it. Thank you, Archangel, for being here now. It's instant. For protecting me as my body sleeps. For protecting my spirit as it goes off and travels as my body sleeps. You can wing it.
Yeah.
You can wing it, but you have to believe it, and it's true. That's the thing. It's whatever you ask for in faith, you shall receive. So a lot of these sayings are real in my life.
Oh, yeah. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you deal with in the paranormal, and how do you address people about these misconceptions?
Everybody has an opinion,
Yeah.
right? Everybody has the answers, and you have to look at somebody's experience and what they, their intentions. This is my thing. If somebody's out there trying to just float their ego and become a celeb, if you're ghost hunting, which is a big misnomer, and you're out there trying to catch some evidence so that you can get on some kind of TV show,
Oh, Lord.
right, and become an instant para-celebrity, or you exaggerate the number of years that you've been involved in this, or you make things up. I mean, it all come back because everything's out there in the field, and everything is in public domain. There are all these people, and I'm not saying anybody's any better than anyone else. And I always say that just because I worked with the Warrens as one of their students, as one of a small handful of people that actually really was in the trenches with them, doesn't make me any more special than anybody else. It is special, but it doesn't make me some superstar. You know, they were the superstars, the legends. They're the legends. And um, the stories and the cases and the experience is special. And I talked to some of the other people, like my friend Drew, Andy, who's worked with them. He has no interest at all in coming forward about any of his case work, working with the Warrens. He was there before I came in, and he's the one that opened the door for me when I first arrived at the house. And I said, you know, we're all getting older. You know, we all have these stories, and all these stories are going to die off with us if when we die off, and we need to preserve them. And he's like, I don't care. People just don't care. And you know, it's because I believe that, you know, people have egos and people have intentions, and whether they're sincere or good intentions or bad intentions, that all remains to be seen. But I know there's just so much stuff going on, and this whole competition between everybody is like, you know, everybody wants to be on the same level, and everybody um, is out there just bashing people, and I try to stay away from all that stuff. And it's like I won't say anything publicly um, about anybody because it's just does more harm than good, and that's not who I am. You know, I try to bring people together, and I try to build bridges and say, look, and here's the thing with the Warrens, and this is a public statement that I make all the time. The Warrens been doing it for over 50 years, and there have been generations of people that have worked in some capacity with them, or knew them, or saw their lectures, or bumped into them, or had some kind of history with them, and so forth. So guess what? We all have a piece of the puzzle, and we can all come together and, you know, put it all together,
Yeah.
and be happy about celebrating this enigmatic couple. And there's so many people that bash them left and right who have never met them, who have heard stories and so forth. Is everybody perfect? No. Right. But my experiences with them has been nothing but genuine. Lorraine was always very concerned about the safety of the investigators. She would call cases off before they ever began because she realized she's putting people in danger, the severe cases.
Yeah.
They would call cases off as they're happening because people are getting, they're really, really becoming, it's becoming dangerous, right?
Right.
And they didn't want to see anybody get hurt because Lorraine is a very kind woman. And Ed was always very, very serious, but he was always cracking jokes. Why? To raise the vibration, because people are getting very serious and very down. Like, oh my God, we're being affected by this dark presence in this house. He's like, you know, you got to shift out of that victim mindset and realize that you're here as an observer. You're here as somebody here to help. Other things that are, I can't really think of anything else regarding that question, but I'm lucky and fortunate enough that I actually chronicled all my experiences in the newspapers. So working at being a Sacred Heart University student and writing the newspaper columns and preserving that information on the public record
Yeah.
when I was just a young college student. So that was really cool. And the interesting thing, there's a tape out there, the Rathdrum case I did in Idaho. The Warrens actually did a live satellite uplink from New York to Seattle and then to Spokane or wherever it is that we were all doing it. And I got bumped off that broadcast because one of the family friends went in instead of me. And that upset me because I was the lead investigator in the case. But Lorraine mentioned me. She said, one of our students, a young man by the name of Jason McLeod, was the lead investigator on this case. And he experienced such and such and such. That tape exists. I never got a copy of it because I wasn't doing it at the time to get on a show or have any kind of notoriety and so forth like that. But that tape exists somewhere in Washington State where I went to college. I'd love to get my hands on that. The interesting thing is that Judy, the Warren's daughter, was going through all of their files, and she actually sent me screenshots of the letter that I'd written, handwritten letter that I'd sent to the Warrens from my dorm at Eastern Washington about this Rathdrum case and how very concerned I was about specific family members and so forth. So I got the envelope in an angle of one of the pages of the letter. So that's really good because I didn't keep any of that stuff. And I actually had phenomenal photographs at that case. There was one instance where they would describe, they would see like these red floating that looked like eyes outside the house peering in, inside the house at certain times. And I captured that on film. And I'm all like looking really freaky and stuff, like the classic things. And all that stuff was lost when my closet flooded during a
Oh
major
my.
rainstorm. And I just tossed it all because I was like, what am I going to do with this stuff? You know what I mean? I wasn't, collecting hundreds of audio cassettes and hundreds of video cassettes, but there are others, people who've done that, like John Zaffis, which is really great because he has a whole library. Jimmy Petanito is a friend of mine. He was actually working as the Warrens photographer on many cases, and he has a whole library of video VHS tapes because he was actually working with Bishop McKenna, Robert McKenna, during the exorcisms that he was performing in Monroe at the chapel. So he and we're like, we call ourselves some of the OGs, one of the group of probably 15 or so people because we were there, and he has all those tapes and so forth. So that's really great because it's preserving the history. And he's trying to write some books too. He wrote two books, Phantom Messages, and I can't remember what the newest one is. But we're there. We're trying to lecture and talk about it and present the material because I think people are fascinated. They'll always be fascinated with spirit phenomena. There, so many people are fascinated with the Warrens, and here we are as the students and now proteges of the Warrens. And we have all kinds of information that the public would love to have access to, good or bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was all good, except that one time I was bumped off the show. But anyway, that's just the way it is. Things happen, and everything happens for a reason. And I know it's always for the best and highest good, no matter what it is. At the time, you really don't realize that, but I think as it goes on, you realize that this is all meant to be, and it's happening because this is the way it's supposed to go down.
Well, your intentions to me seem more honorable than some of the other folks out there.
Thank you.
To be honest, I see very few that are actually there to help the people that are involved instead of making a television broadcast out of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I question some of those television broadcasts, but I would.
I've never watched a single episode of any of those shows. In fact, I was in the classroom in the Warrens' home when Ed and Lorraine were first talking about Warner Brothers expressing interest in buying their cases or some of their cases. And those of us that were sitting there were like, they are going to, you spent your careers bringing the reality behind the paranormal to general awareness through your lectures and your books. And now you're going to sell them and give anybody who buys them creative license to do whatever it is they want, because they have formulas and so forth. And, for instance, Carmen Snedeker, she's a friend of mine. I met her at one of the first conventions I did. Sweetheart. She was the woman in the Haunting in Connecticut case in the funeral home. And they made a TV movie out of her case. And they put bodies in the walls of the funeral home, like the bodies were falling out of the woodwork. And they're like, it makes her look foolish, because it did not happen. And then it all comes back on, guess who? The Warrens. Oh, they made it up and they put it on there. They didn't do it. Hollywood did it.
Yeah.
And she was so upset because, her story, she wrote a book, which is great because it preserves her story. Same thing with the parents. They did everything with The Conjuring and so forth. And Andrea wrote a series of books, a trilogy actually, about her experiences from her perspective. So the cases are preserved by the people that were actually experiencing them. And the reason I self-published Dark Siege, I easily could have gotten a publishing contract for it, but I did not want some editor who has no idea what's going on to go and tweak things and change things and put things in that didn't exist and omit things that happened, because this is absolutely the most terrifying experience of my life. It's more terrifying than the Conjuring stuff, The Exorcist even. It's wilder than the Poltergeist movies, even though that was mostly fiction. It's nuts what happened in this case. And I self-published to preserve the integrity of the cases. I've done phenomenally well with it. But I'm thinking how incredible it would have been and could be if a major publisher picked it up and got it to the world where there's millions and millions of people reading it instead of tens of thousands who've read it. But again, my fear is, things being altered. The good news is that I partnered with somebody last year I met in Chicago and at the airport actually, and he came and asked, he came to the show, had no interest in the paranormal or any of this stuff, and he's like, "Why hasn't this been turned into a movie?" And I said, "Help me turn it into a movie, and I'll give you a piece of the pie. I'm all about sharing a piece of the pie."
Yeah.
And he and I partnered together, and we hired a screenwriter from AMC, Shutter Channel, Joe Randazzo, and he and I wrote the screenplay for Dark Siege Infestation. So the Dark Siege book, just to tell you about it, is separated into four sections. Infestation chapters, oppression chapters, possession chapters, and then the chapter analysis. So Joe says, "Oh my God, we're never going to fit all this stuff into one 2-hour movie. This can easily be 3 2-hour movies with each section or a phenomenal streaming series." So he and I have just finished Dark Siege Infestation screenplay. We had a table read at University of Illinois because Jim, his son, just graduated and he's part of the drama department. So we had their drama department read the lines. They each chose a character and they got to read the lines from the 9 major characters in the first third of the book. And the professor read the narration and they absolutely all loved it. Joe says you write in a cinematic style. So we actually just copied and pasted a lot of my prose right into the screenplay.
Yeah.
That's how easy it was. I write in a very cinematic way. I write it because I see it, right? So I recreated it based on what I remember and all the interviews that I did and recreating the characters who were real people, changed names and so forth and all that stuff. But it just is so dynamic and so visual for people. They can't put it down and they can't wait. They can't read it at night without every light on, even from seasoned investigators. Even Drew, Andy Thompson, he says, "I could not read this book without all the lights on in the house." And he's the person that opened the door for me at the Warren's place. He's experienced phenomenal things. And he's actually in the Vermont case that I'm writing about because he is a very talented psychic, almost as talented as Lorraine was. And very involved as an investigator working for the Warrens. But I know I talk so much, but there's so much to convey.
I think it would be a great series for like a series to put on something like Gaia or something something similar. It would be great.
Yeah, I'd love to see it as a full theatrical release. 3 2-hour movies, but you can do so much more with the streaming. And again, the goal is to reach the people and say, look, this is the absolute horror or nightmare that took place to an average American family who had a chance drive-by of a cemetery and the total disaster that took place when they used a Ouija board and made the wrong connections at the wrong time. And it just kept getting progressively worse.
I hear so many people being interviewed on other shows too. They say, "Well, I've never had any trouble with the Ouija board. It's blah blah." And I'm thinking, yet.
Yeah,
that's the key word. I wouldn't even let one in my front doors.
No.
So,
do you know the numbers of stories that I've heard from people that came up and told me their own Ouija board nightmare stories? Incredible. You can't destroy them.
Art had his own. I'm not sure what took place. He never told anyone. Well, he may have told some people really close to him. Yeah. But he never, told me about it. But I heard him talking about it on the air.
Yeah.
So
they teleport them around. They move them around. You can't destroy them. In many cases, they come right back. It's fascinating when you make that connection. But again, use the Archangel Michael prayer. Thank you, Archangel Michael, for severing any connections I've made with this board, for closing any doorways I've opened with this board, for liberating me, and for freeing, for protecting me, and for taking any spirits that I've contacted with this board into custody, take them to the one Creator, to God Almighty, and take them out of my life forever. Right?
Yeah.
They'll do it, but you have to ask them to do it. They're incredibly powerful beings. And you're dealing with nefarious spirits that seek to destroy you and split your family apart and isolate and terrorize and possess you. You know, their ultimate goal is to be able to possess you. Their ultimate goal is to be able to kill you because they can't kill God, they can't hurt God, but they go after the next best thing, which is whom God loves, which is humanity.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that bothered me the most when I saw the Pope's Exorcist movie,
I saw that. Yeah.
when the seething rage that these beings have. You know, the one woman was just trying to protect her son, you know, and it's like, just like completely like a Smeagol from Lord of the Rings, like, or
Yeah.
Bilbo, you know, when he's under the possession and stuff. And it's like, it's incredible the rage that they feel. But that's what you're dealing with, rage-filled beings. And yet there's people out there that think they're going to summon them to do their bidding. They hate you with every fiber of their existence. They want to destroy you. And they'll trick you into believing that they're going to do you some favors. And they may do you a favor too, you know, but then the bill's going to come due.
Yeah.
Why would you want to interact with something that exists beyond time and space, that has centuries, you know, millennia, eons of accumulated wisdom and intelligence and experience, you know? It's just mind-boggling to me. And then people thinking they're going to use some kind of sigils, you know, they're going to come and figure it out. And it's the people that want to summon them and making blood pacts with them too.
Yeah.
That's one I had a woman come up and talk to me too. I made a blood pact with a demon because I couldn't feel God, so I wanted to feel Satan. Like, and what happens when this being turns on you? It's like, oh, he can't because I put it in the writing, that the small print.
Oh, wow.
You know, yeah. And you know what? So then guess who has to come to their rescue? The clergy.
Yeah.
So this is a perfect segue. I felt in 2023, I wanted to bring together real exorcists and deliverance ministers under one roof and put on an amazing seminar to show people through their perspective, their own firsthand accounts of their own lives and experiences, the worst cases they've experienced, how these forces weave their way into our lives. They're very sneaky, right? They're very subtle. What they have to do about it. Real EVPs from possession and oppression and exorcism cases and deliverance situations. An angelic choir that Bishop Long had, he got from a chapel in Israel, a friend of his. He got a recording from a chapel in Israel, which is real angelic voices singing after the human choir stopped singing. The lady left the tape recorder on in this chapel, and it is ethereal. It is incredible, and it's all real. So I put together this event called Defeating the Demonic in 2023. I flew everybody. I flew Archbishop Ronald File Enright out from California. He's a archbishop. He runs the Sacred Order of St. Michael the Archangel Order of Exorcists for 45 years. This man has been in the front lines. Archbishop James Cloud is a mental health professional and exorcist, and he actually works under Enright's organization. Bishop James Long, one of my closest friends and supporters, exorcist, he's the first Catholic priest to come to the aid of the general paranormal community. And Reverend Bill Bean, good friend of mine, the man is a powerhouse as a deliverance minister. And I brought everybody together. It's a 4-hour event. It was a packed audience. And I just made the DVDs available, the 90-minute highlights, which are the most important, potent parts of that 4-hour seminar. And I just made those DVDs available. I just got them in. And if you want to put up that link for me, my main website's darksiege.com, www.darksiege.com, and then /defeating-the-demonic will take you to the page that I have this DVD available at. But I have samples. There's a sizzle reel. I don't know if we can play that or not.
Yes, sir.
But,
I've got it queued and good to go.
good.
Let me run it, and then we'll be right back.
So this is where it gets pretty frightening.
Hey, come on, demon, I dare you to do something. You're not so tough. Do something to me. Let me give you a little piece of advice. The demon is looking at you within 5 inches and saying, oh, I will.
The stuff I'm revealing to you are things that you don't hear about. Demons are real.
Come talk to me. Show yourself before me. Give me some answers. We are dealing with forces beyond our imagination.
People always tell me, I want you to prove that demons exist.
withering on the floor like a serpent.
The entity was so angry that you could hear the growl in the background.
Oh, I've been using Ouija for 15, 20 years, and I've never had a problem. It hasn't happened yet.
Stay away from them.
And in 36 years, I was doing 3 exorcisms a day.
Every time I see that demon, I stab it.
They're all around us right now.
That was the most terrifying experience I've ever had.
We're all in the battle of good versus evil. We have to keep ourselves alert, keep our eyes open, and make sure that you are connected with a higher power.
I will not be your victim.
All right.
Great. Yeah, so the DVD's available. It's fantastic. I encourage everybody to share it with other people, have like viewing parties and so forth, because it's so important. And the fascinating thing is that I contacted 100 local churches in the radius of Southbury, Connecticut, where this took place, saying, please share this information with your parishioners. Ask somebody to come and get this information. And how many do you think replied? Goose egg. None. And Bill Bean says these places have become dens of iniquity. Most of them don't even believe in the devil or believe in the dark spirits and so forth. And like Archbishop Enright in California, he's training bishops now who don't have a ministry of exorcism in their churches and so forth. He's got 1,000 exorcists under his jurisdiction all over the world, and everywhere at some point in the world the major rite of exorcism is taking place, and the solemn rites, right? It's phenomenal, and nobody's done anything like it. I did an event for 13 hours last year in Bridgeport, Connecticut at the Bijou Theater. People were glued to their seats. They didn't leave, aside from the meal breaks and so forth like that. It was a 13-hour expose. I brought in additional speakers, Bishop Joshua Sparks, Reverend Dan Todd in the original cast from the first show, but showing, again, example after example after example of how these forces weave their way into our lives and what they have to do. They stick their necks on the line, their financial well-being, their physical, mental, spiritual well-being, to do battle with these demonic spirits that have found ways to possess people and to just, oppress their lives, infest their homes. And I'm a demonic profiler. I'm a demonologist. Scary title, but all it means is that I can identify based on the activity taking place and what I witness and sense and feel, whether something's an earthbound human spirit or something more nefarious. And then I'll refer it right to the clergy, because I'm not an exorcist, I'm an empath, and which means I pick up emotions very easily. And these things definitely prey on your emotions. And exorcisms are mind-blowing experiences. If you haven't, one of the most terrifying things you can ever experience, a genuine possession, perfect possession, which means there's no relief. The body can take so much trauma. It's incredible. And the DVD's available. My books are available. The graphic novel for Dark Siege Infestation, which is the first third of the book, will be out, I would say, September. Absolutely gorgeous, full color, beautiful graphic novel version. The audiobook's available on audible.com. If you have a free credit or an Audible credit, you can just pick it up there on Audible. It's Dark Siege, A Connecticut Family's Nightmare. And the goal is, with every DVD sale that I make, I'm funding the actual next physical Defeating the Demonic event. We want to take it on the road because it's so important and it's so powerful. We'd love to be able to go to multiple cities and do it, but it's expensive. And I do all these regular conventions all year, selling my books and reaching out to people and so forth. But every show, reach more people, sell more books, and it just expands the brand and expands the awareness. And the goal is help people, who've made the wrong choices and opened the wrong doorways, and help, get them help if I can't help them myself.
The exorcism of Annalise Michelle, was that a perfect possession?
That was perfect possession. And like as Bishop Long says in the seminar, I'm quoting him, the demonic does not want the substance of life to enter the body. So be that food or beverage. And they refused medical treatment, and she was 68 pounds when she died. The interesting thing is, Bishop Long actually has the actual recordings from that exorcism of Annalise Michel he got from the Vatican. It's not the same, stuff that you see online. This is the genuine McCoy that
it's
I
not
have.
the YouTube files. So
No, I have the actual file, the actual audio clip that he presented from his tablet. He presented several different EVP sessions. Scary, terrifying just to hear this stuff. One had like 14 pitches, or no, even more, 32 pitches. There's a Tibetan monk that can do 2.
yeah,
And he trained his whole life to do it. And this was like 32 pitches, or it's outrageous. Like you have alto, soprano, bass and tenor, and this was 32.
wow,
That this one demonic spirit was speaking. Frequency and vibration, right? How is this possible? It's not possible for a human, but for them, it's probably, easy.
I wish I had known you had those files. I could have put them. Well, I still can put them with your show archive on my website if anyone wanted to go and listen to it. If you are willing
grab the DVD.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to have this access, just grab it. It's $25.
Okay.
You'd spend that for it. It's 90 minutes, but it'll blow you away. There's nothing like it anywhere.
You spend more than that at McDonald's for a Big Mac.
Yeah, I'll drop it in the mail the next morning, and it's right there. You get it through my PayPal account. But it's phenomenal, and I didn't make it outrageously priced or anything. So I'm just trying to get the info into people's homes so they can see these incredible men. These men I gathered together are incredible superheroes.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not an exorcist. Like Ed Warren says, I'm not an exorcist. I would never want anybody to think that I was. He said himself, and but he'll help. My specialty it's called suffumigation or suffumigation, which is Ed trained us in what he had a lack of in regard to the investigators. So he needed help in having somebody that was competent to this suffumigation, which is it's a Catholic ritual blessing of a house or a location using high church incense, frankincense, and myrrh, charcoal discs to burn and make this incredible high frequency, right, and vibration smoke.
Yeah.
Blessed white candles, 3 sets of 3 prayers in every room, right, until every room is done in the whole house and all locations flooded with the smoke with the intention of fumigating. That's why it's called suffumigate. Fumigate against negative energies and force it to leave, because these are extra low vibrational beings and they can't stand high vibrational smokes, energies. That's why you sage. Same thing as saging, right? But this is a ritualistic ritual, including prayer, which is provocation. Provocation isn't, oh, I dare you to do something, demon. You're not so tough. Like Bishop Lung was saying in the sizzle reel. That's not provocation. That's invitation. Provocation is when you start to pray. When you're using religious means to invoke the protection of Christ, archangels, God. They hate that. They go berserk and they can lash out and start attacking people. And fortunately for myself, I've never been physically attacked. The only experience I had, which I relay in the Starksiege case, is when I went up into the attic during the suffumigation. I felt like this wet cloth, this damp, lukewarm wet cloth just smeared all over my face, and I backed down.
Oh. Wow.
But I had never been bitten or attacked or scratched with things. But I'll give you a case. I went on with the other investigators working with the Warrens to a case, and it was reported that intense activity would take place in the bathrooms. And I had to go to the bathroom, and I said, well, I don't want to go in the bathroom where there's intense activity. I'll go walk down the street to the local Dunkin' Donuts. And I did, but I didn't bother to tell anybody that I left. And here I'm gone, and they all thought I got teleported somewhere, because apparently it's a real thing. And people have been teleported, pets have been teleported, physical objects have been teleported. So again, quantum physics has basically proven that nothing is really solid. Everything is frequency and vibration. So you're affecting the frequency or the electromagnetic state of something and breaking apart molecularly and then reestablishing it. There's a phenomenon called an apport, which is something that has never existed, which is brought into this reality and forms in a physical way, but it only lasts a specific amount of time, and then it destructures itself, or it dematerializes and disappears forever, never to return. That's different than something being teleported. Something that already exists and has existed is broken down and moved somewhere else and exists there in that space. That's the two different phenomena there, which is really cool. So maybe, hopefully, a lot of things I've talked about tonight people haven't heard of before, and it would help them understand these things a little bit better. But it's so interesting.
Yes, sir. I'm sure my guests appreciate it. I've got one that after I played that video, they are kind of nervous.
Oh, well, don't be nervous. Thank you, Archangel Michael, for being here now, for protecting me, for keeping any spirits out of my life forever. In Jesus' name. I mean, all you have to do. It's all you have to do.
I guess one last question. You have any other upcoming projects, and what can readers expect from you from the future?
Okay, I have Dark Siege, A Connecticut Family's Nightmare, Dark Siege 2, The Nightmare Returns. They're both available and have been available since 2012, 2014. The graphic novel is going to be coming out in the fall for Dark Siege Infestation, which is going to be a gorgeous, about 175-page book, 8.5 by 11. Gorgeous artwork for people who want to see things, see the case unravel instead of reading it. The audiobook's available. The screenplay is finished for the first third of the book, followed by Dark Siege and Oppression and then Dark Siege Possession. I have Rage and Wrathdrum, which I've been working on, which I just have to finish and bring out there. And that's the case that I investigated for the Warrens as their lead investigator for the first time in a case in Idaho while I was in college in Washington State, because I was geographically closer and they trusted me. And then I have The Demon of Daybreak, Dark Siege. The Dark Siege is my brand for all of my paranormal books, my most interesting cases. So Dark Siege, The Demon of Daybreak Farm, which is the case in Vermont that I investigated that completely changed my life. That was the first major case that I investigated with the Warrens, who again only got involved in very serious cases of demonic stuff, demonic spirits. And that is it for right now. I'm doing convention after convention, selling my books, and that's about it.
Well, I appreciate you greatly being on the show with us.
Thank you.
Me being as new as I am, and of course, I'm not really trying to put a name out there. I'm just trying to bring all this information out so that people can, learn about it.
Right.
That's the biggest thing.
My email, if people want to email me, is darksiegestudios@proton.me. And that's how you can reach me there. My socials, I'm on Instagram and all that stuff. Facebook, Dark Siege on Facebook, and you can find all my socials in there. I'm all over YouTube, Dark Siege Studios, Dark Siege at Jason McLeod, MCLEOD 007. I'm trying to migrate everything over to Dark Siege Studios, because that's what I'm trying to basically just have everything under one title instead of many. But Defeating the Demonic is one of my Facebook pages and so forth. I'm posting all kinds of stuff. I post really fun video compilations from all the events that I do, featuring some of the great costumes that people come up to my table with, and it's fun. People really go all out, and it's a lot of fun because a lot of people don't go to these shows and they're missing out. So I provide these really great videos for people to see and have a good time doing it. So my next big show is Connecticut Paracon in right here in Connecticut, and then I have Fan Expo Boston, Fan Expo Chicago, GalaxyCon, Connecticut Horror Fest. I'm actually a sponsor for that this year, and which is really good. That's a really big, fun show. They're all really cool. I try to do the biggest shows possible, just because there's guaranteed to be tens of thousands of patrons, customers, and then it's up to me to basically talk to people and convince them to buy my books, which they do. So it's really good. So if you want a phenomenal read you will not be able to put down, trust me, I have 4.4 rating on Amazon with over 450 reviews. But the paperbacks are available. I autograph them, I sign them and personalize them and drop them in the mail. You can also get the Kindle edition via Amazon. Our Journey Home, the Handbook for the Transition, is my third book, and that's the large print color illustrated guide for everybody in hospice, all their caregivers, to help them understand my understanding about what happens when we vacate the body. And it's based on my experiences working with these earthbound human spirits, the near-death experience studies, and my general knowledge about the subject matter. And Renegade of Light is a sci-fi metaphysical roller coaster ride, really about the hidden forces operating beyond human perception that are controlling these dark forces on Earth. And it's really cool. Renegade of Light. And they have 2 more books coming out, and just going to keep on trucking. So I really appreciate being on your show, and I thank everybody for tuning in. And I'd really love it if you'd grab my books or the DVD, especially so I can help bring more Defeating the Demonic events to different cities, featuring these phenomenal exorcists and deliverance ministers who are just really incredible people.
You have anything coming up in Memphis, Tennessee, or Little Rock, Arkansas?
I just did. No, that was in Arkansas. Let me check my thing here. 1 second. I'll give you the rest of my schedule here. 1 sec. So I've got Connecticut Paracon, July 12th, 13th. The Gothic Market in Dayton, Ohio, July 19th and 20th. Monsta Expo in New Hampshire, July 26th and 27th. Fan Expo Boston, August 8th to the 10th. Fan Expo Chicago, August 15th to the 17th. Fright Reads Book Festival, Maryland, Baltimore, September 13th, 14th. Connecticut Horror Fest, September 20th, 21st. Haunted Market, Augusta, Maine, September 22nd, 27th. Dark Side Oddities Expo, October 18th, New Jersey. GalaxyCon St. Louis, October 10th and 12th to the 12th. Nightmare Weekend, Richmond, Virginia, October 17th to the 19th. Halloween Inc. Expo, Ashland, Kentucky, October 24th to the 25th. Rhode Island Comic Con, November 7th to the 9th. Monster Mania, Oaks, Pennsylvania, November 21st to the 23rd. And GalaxyCon, Columbus, Ohio, December 5th through the 7th. And that's all I have so far. But Tennessee, I used to do CreepyCon in Knoxville. I'm not doing it this year because I'm doing another show. But keep tabs on my darksiege.com page because I have a video about all the events that I do through the year. And I'll be adding the 2026 next, probably in December. I have several shows booked, including Oklahoma City and Philly so far. But if this movie thing happens or the streaming thing happens, then it's going to be, stratosphere, which is going to be really great. And I can just reach so many more people, but we'll take it as it comes.
Well, I'll keep my eyes open. And if it comes to be, maybe have you back on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll let you know. I have your contact information whenever I'm going to be in the Arkansas area. Haven't really seen any shows in Arkansas, so maybe we can try to arrange one somehow. But I do lectures. If anybody's interested in hiring me for to do lectures, I have 4 different lectures working with the Warrens, the science and spirituality behind the paranormal, Dark Siege Unveiled, and Defeating the Demonic. So I do these at like conventions, major paranormal conventions, and libraries and lecture halls and things like that. But you can find all that stuff on my YouTube pages and my social media.
All right. I'll remind my audience if any of the links you mentioned they didn't get to jot down, they can go to the nwdn.net, that nightwatchdigitalnetwork.net, and it's all listed there.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Good night, sir. Bye. Bye-bye.
Nothing new. Flashback.
For decades, eerie tales have circulated among the old Charleston-Somerville Railway in South Carolina. Legend has that a grieving wife searching for her decapitated husband haunts the tracks with a lantern, forever wandering and conjuring small glowing lights in various colors. Witnesses even report cars shaking, doors slamming, and ghostly whispers. Seismologist Dr. Susan Huff of the USGS, who has been studying seismic activity from the historic 1886 Charleston earthquake, revisited these ghost stories. She dug into mid-20th century accounts and cross-referenced them with minor seismic tremors, some registering magnitudes between 3.5 and 4.4 in 1959 to 1960, right near the ghost light sightings. Huff suggests that these orbs may actually be earthquake lights, a known but poorly understood phenomenon. She posits that gas emissions like radon or methane released due to slight fault movements might ionize or ignite in the air. These gases interacting with oxygen and static electricity, perhaps sparked by old steel rails and stray metal debris, could produce glowing blue, green, or white orbs. Shaking cars and slamming doors may not be poltergeists at all, but tremors. Huff notes that even shallow seismic events can cause high-frequency vibrations and low-frequency rumbling, enough to mimic unexplained sounds or sensations. That's it for Dark Matter News. Catch up with us on the Midnight Frequency Facebook page. From Memphis, Tennessee, I'm Joshua Stark.
Do you suffer from the heartbreak of brain rot, feeling bored, sluggish, listless, not had a new idea in days, using electronic gizmos without a clue why they work? Now there's help. Ham radio, guaranteed to stimulate your corroding neurons and open a whole new world of excitement. To learn more about ham radio, go to helloradio.org.
Side effects of ham radio usage include mental stimulation, desire for education, new career paths, understanding of technology, and cases of addiction have been reported. If you experience any of these symptoms, you're welcome.
Ham radio. It's not your granddaddy's radio anymore.
Welcome back to Midnight Frequency Radio. I wanted to let everyone know that our next show will be Friday, July the 11th. We're taking off the weekend of the 4th, and I'll probably have a replay during that time period. But our guest will be Whitley Strieber, and we'll be talking about his latest book, The Fourth Mind. Of course, anyone that knows Whitley Strieber knows that he's had alien encounters and abductions, and I'm sure that that will be a very interesting show to make. So until July the 11th, I look forward for everyone being back, and thank you for listening to tonight's show.